Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
I don't think there's anybody on the planet that would say, I want to be disorganized. I love it. I love being disorganized. It makes my life so much easier. It empowers me. I love it when I can't find things. It's great. I love wasting time. That's the best part of it. No, nobody's going to say that. When you're disorganized, there's a reason for it. We've identified those reasons using her insight. It goes deeper than just people not knowing where to put their stuff. But what happens when you don't hire an organizer? I'm talking about a professional organizer. And what happens when you do? We're going to talk to that professional organizer today. And she's the CEO of Built to be Visible Pro Organizing. Emily Guderian is back with us. Hello. How are you?
I'm doing great, Steve. It's nice to see you.
Yeah, you too. You too. And let's boil it down to some of the basics here. We've identified most often, and I really mean most often, when people are disorganized, there is a reason for it. Typically, what's the reason?
It is different for everybody. And what I say is it's never what they think. So they'll think it's a time management issue. They'll think that it's the kids. The kids never put the stuff away where it belongs.
Yep.
There'll be 1,000 reasons, and usually they're not right. It is something stuck. It could be stuck from a long time past. It could be stuck from a short time past, but there is an emotional trigger. Usually it's negative emotion that is connected to the clutter. And this is the case in almost every single home I've been in.
What if now this is where I got to start jumping. I'm jumping down a rabbit hole.
Let's go. Let's go. I like the rabbit holes.
What if you're relatively organized? Let's say you've identified some of those things in your life that could be causing it, and you reel it in from time to time. And then from time to time, you find yourself disorganized again. Like this is for people that let's say you worked with, and then all of a sudden they find themselves with disarray, and they just look, what happened? What happened? Does that potentially correlate to what's going on in their life right now, or a trigger to something from the past?
Yes. And usually what I find is sometimes the trigger emotion, whatever it is really deep and multi-layered. And this is what I tell my clients in when we just do the energetic side and the emotional side of what I do, if organizing isn't a part of it. Just because we do a release and just because the same issue crops up, the truth of it is it's not exactly the same issue. It's a variation of the same issue, and it's basically the next layer that's presenting, being ready to release. And the unconscious mind kind of plays a part in that and bringing it forward. So if you're aware of it, if it's like tripping you up, then it's the next layer that's ready to be released. And a lot of these things, a lot of the trauma that people endure in their life experiences, they are multi-layered and really deep. So the release of that is a multi-layered effort as well.
So is it when we're dealing with those traumas, is it most often all the stuff happened in the past? Typically, and we identified your childhood is very impactful, especially 0 to 7, where things, I don't mean horrible, horrific things. I'm just talking life. You know, as a child, you experience, it could be you got bullied. It could be you just, somebody said something to you that you internalized, and now that's kind of charted your adult life. Is it most often that stuff that comes up and creates the clutter, but things that trigger that stuff that come up, and therein lies the clutter that then the disorganization in your life?
Many times, yes. And when I talk about the stuff that's stuck, it doesn't always go back to childhood. I guess everything technically could go back to childhood, but it is the most recent iteration of a disrupt, if that makes sense. So we just release that iteration that's ready to be released. I don't know if I answered your question on that.
But when things
very
come up,
well.
things come
When
up.
things come up,
Yeah. Like, and you don't even know they're coming up. Maybe you got, call it triggered from something
yeah.
that's connected to your past. And now things are a mess again. Cluttered. Things are cluttered up again. Can it keep coming back
Until you release it, yes,
until you
it
release
can.
it? Okay.
Hmm.
Um, and we're going to talk about what happens when you don't hire one and when you do hire a professional organizer. How do you release it? I want to go back and make sure that's well understood.
It's different for everybody. And that's why it's kind of fun to talk about it. And if you're looking for an exact thing that's going to unfold for you, well, this it's not going to happen like that. But I can give you the generals, and it's actually just kind of my secret sauce. And I like to let it unfold as it unfolds. But I use muscle testing. I use energy work. I use somatics. We move. I use music, and I use all of those things in different ways and variations in order to bring up the roots. Usually I'm pretty good at listening and hearing for it, but sometimes like we talked about, these things are multi-layered. So I'm listening for it. And then, and just like we use those things to keep it light, to ease the client through the process, because it is a process. And we always say it always gets worse before it gets better. And sometimes in that worse, it's very disruptive to a client's,
Mm,
personal peace. So we use all of those tools to move them through the process easier. But then the magic of the tools is that not only do we move them through the process, we go and we hit and release that initial trigger, so that whatever system we put in place, it stays for them. They're not finding themselves back in clutter, because whatever that trigger was, it's now gone. It's shifted.
hmm. Now you mentioned muscle testing before,
Hmm.
and it's kind of your baseline. And I've tried it myself. I know that people can do it for themselves, but it's I find it challenging for me.
It sometimes is. It takes a lot of practice for
Yeah,
sure.
but you can do it for other people or to other people. You can do it remotely as well. Do you need to know what the trauma is or was when you're muscle testing? Do you ever have to find out?
No, and there's a lot of times where discussing the specifics of it is not in the best interest of the person. And we actually ask, using the muscle testing, is it in this person's best interest to name the trauma any further, other than to just say it's trauma and this is the emotion that's connected? Sometimes it's not in their best interest. We
Wow.
don't, I don't, in the modality that I'm certified in, we don't stir things up where it's not in the best interest of that person to discuss it.
Hmm, interesting. I've done different modalities, hypnotherapy, and others, and it was discussed. I got bullied. I was the fat kid, and
Yeah.
that was one of those things that have has impacted me later in life. No surprise. And some other stuff. But I also did a timeline regression, call it hypnotherapy again, where the practitioner had no idea, just
Yeah.
identified when was the first time you felt sadness? When was the first time you felt frustration? And then you think back, and yeah, it's a whole process. Um, but they never knew. And I didn't even have to say it. Didn't even matter. It's like
It never does.
it
The
never does.
event never matters. The suffering, the upset, it comes from what we say about whatever that event was.
Right.
So yeah, sometimes it matters just, for whatever reference for that individual. But the truth is, the actual event, it doesn't matter. It only matters what we say about it.
Hmm.
So you could have been bullied, and that could have been the fuel for something else. But your personality, your psyche, that was harmful and hurtful. And it had a massive cascading effect on you.
Sure.
Truth is, that kind of happened to me too. Like high school, it's not my favorite time. And I have some of that I carry as well. So
Hmm.
it just depends on the individual. There's other people that would take that and they would be like, yeah, here we
Yeah.
go. I'm
Yeah.
gonna
Yeah.
fuel.
Yeah. That it's different for everybody because, yeah, to your point, there are. people that could have been bullied, and they're like, yeah, whatever, didn't even bother me. When I
Yeah,
say
don't
people, I
even
mean
touch them.
younger, right? But interesting what you said, that, let's say a bullying episode that could connect to something else. And I do believe in my childhood, it does connect to, it's not connected, but it is connected in
It
some
is
regards.
connected.
And that, now you had this, now you have this, and then I'm going to call it the collateral damage around it, what it created, and that's what keeps us stuck right there.
Yeah, for sure.
Hmm.
For sure.
We were going to talk today about what happens when you hire a professional organizer and what happens when you don't. I think we're doing it, right? In a way,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, we are. What I've noticed, when you don't, whether it's me or any other organizer out there, what I've noticed is when you don't, I call it insidious, and it's because it's very slow. There's a diminishing of your quality of life. You feel stuck, and you don't really quite know what to attribute to all of this. But usually it's that clutter, it's that emotional trigger. So
Hmm.
you'll feel stuck, you'll feel frustrated, you'll feel stressed, maybe anxious, and it changes so slowly over time that over a large amount of time, finally you go, well, wait, look at how much I've experienced that hasn't been good because of this one thing.
Hmm.
It's very gradual, and you don't really realize that that is making a difference to you. That's the thing that's kind of fascinating to me, is you don't know how bad it's gotten. It's like cataracts. Like, it is, your eyesight goes just a little bit at a time until all of a sudden you can't see anything.
You're speaking about somebody I met recently, and he knows what he should be doing. He knows he should be on track, and he has, within his job, there's different jobs, different projects,
Yeah.
and and other responsibilities around. And he doesn't know why he can't do it. Like, he's like, I know I'm supposed to do this, and then I'm supposed to do that, but then this didn't happen. And he's even trying to get organized by writing it down, putting in a board in front of him, bought that, all of that. But to your point, all those best practices, those attempts, it ain't going to happen.
Right.
It's going to change a little bit, but not to the greater degree that we all want it to be, because of what's stuck in us.
Yeah, I think general stuckness is kind of awful. And I've experienced it myself. And I will say, "Oh, I don't know why I'm stuck." Oh, yes, I do. If I would take the moment, if I would take the time to just kind of reflect, I would pretty much be able to figure out why I'm stuck. I think most of us have this ability. We've just been conditioned to ignore it, to not really flex that muscle, if you will.
Hmm. Without even getting personal, do you know, when you trace it back, what had you stuck?
Yeah. And it's never one thing.
Sure.
So I've been on my own personal journey. I think that's part of why I'm so passionate. For me, it was a health issue.
Wow.
Organization was fine, but for me, it was a health issue, and I knew that the root of it was emotional. And so, yeah, these tools, they work for my clients, but I double down and use them for myself, and they work for they continue to shift
Huh.
and change and help me.
So
Oh yeah.
rewind on that one. Um, Now we're talking about traumas and being stuck in life, and that does translate to being disorganized, as we identified earlier. For you, though, it sounds like you're organized, have been, but the trauma translated to a health issue, correct?
Right.
Yeah, which is,
Absolutely.
yeah, I get it. And what I'm learning here is, in my journey, that the stuff that we're talking about, that we dealt with years ago, or what happened to us and we're dealing with now, gets into the cellular level. It goes that deep, and then it causes disease and everything else going on in our bodies.
Yeah, for sure. For
Wow.
sure. For me, there was multiple events that fueled this little conversation within myself. And, I don't mind being personal and sharing this with you. For me, it was I'm not smart enough and I'm not good enough. And so much of my young adulthood and even like solid adulthood was this unconscious push to prove something. I am good enough. I am smart enough. Like the old Saturday Night Live skit, I'm good enough, I'm smart enough, and doggone it, people like me.
Right.
Yeah, my core belief was that I didn't, but it really wasn't anything that was done to me. It was just something that I said about an interpretation of an event. It was my interpretation of an event was nobody likes me and I'm not smart. And so I spent so much time trying to prove that I am smart and that I am good enough. Crazy. Consumed my life.
So, well, before I even ask this question, what you're speaking of in terms of feeling that you're not good enough is universal.
It's
Most of us,
universal.
most
Yeah.
of us feel that whether we know it's happening or not, we feel that we're not good enough, we're not worthy enough. Now, for you, was this event or whatever took place, was it way back in your life, maybe your childhood?
No, actually, it goes to young adult.
Okay.
I was 17 or 18 when the first of these events, and then all of the events that happened afterwards were to prove that I'm not good enough and I'm not smart enough to continue the loop of that conversation in my head.
It's amazing that we even can function, all of us.
I know. I know. I have such a compassion for just people in general, what we interpret, what we judge, what we endure, and then what we overcome. We are a remarkable species,
Crazy.
I think.
We're all running around with chains on. I mean, chains
Yeah.
dripping here, shackles dripping here on your legs all over you. And we're just, we're moving forward, getting it done in life. Imagine if you went threw it all
Yes.
away.
What
One,
would the world be like then?
oh my
Right.
gosh. Yeah,
Even if you could like undo a couple of the shackles. I mean, the idea that you would completely be free of any encumberment, it's humanity, right? Like, would that ever happen? But even if you could unlock a few of those shackles, what would that do for you? It's powerful. That's why I love this work. That's why I'm passionate about this work. That's why I'll see clients and we don't touch organizing. It's because this release work is so key to people being able to step in to the things that they're here to do, the people that they're here to help, the mission, that they're
mm,
here to serve.
I'm just visualizing life with less shackles on all of us. How
More
much
light.
nice we would be, so much more loving and
Yeah.
and friendly, because you think about it. If somebody's walking around with those shackles from events that happened in the past and those chains and all of and the way people act nasty to others, all they're doing is covering up for
Right.
things that happened to them in the past. And it's really not them. If they're dealing with this stuff over here, but they don't know that they're dealing with it. So now they're going to be nasty. And now they're not going to smile and say hi and all of that. And it just comes from the stuff that they're carrying.
Right.
Mm,
Right. And what's so interesting is, yeah, we all deal with our stuff differently, but there's so much of that core stuff. Like I want to be smart. I want to be able to play in the world of humans. I want to be liked. I want to be well received. I think that's almost like a universal thing. We
sure.
all need that. We all crave it.
Everybody needs love. That's what it
Right.
comes down to. Everybody wants to be loved and give love. And we can't even effectively do that in many regards because of the stuff that we're hanging
Right,
on to.
because of the stuff we carry. And
Yeah.
it's not even real. That's the thing. It feels real. It shows up as real in the body. It shows up as real in the spaces where you occupy, but it's not real. It's perception only.
Mm. And it's interesting, and thank you for sharing your situation translating to health issues. Um, how many of us are walking around sick or dealing with chronic challenges and all of that? We don't have to be. And it's
Mm-mm.
right. It's my belief that, our bodies, if you give it what it needs, it'll heal. It'll be fine.
Yeah, the body is a miracle. I agree
Right.
too.
Yeah.
Yeah, and in the energetic community, and I've seen some crazy statistics where they're saying like over 90%, upwards of 95% of disease in people has emotional and energetic roots. But it doesn't always reverse quickly.
Mm.
And the emotion, the negative energy, it goes into the body. The body does not forget it. The mind may. The
But the
mind
body
may
doesn't.
overwrite it, but the body does not forget it until you release it, until you deal with it and release it. But the body is pretty good about responding to the release. It's kind of remarkable in that the body will yield.
Mm. As I piece this stuff all together, briefly, did I ever tell you the wart story?
Oh no, now I'm curious. I want to hear this.
So this is going back years ago, and now I see it, what it's about. And I only realized this in the last couple of months. But go back, I don't know, 12 years. And July 4th, I wanted to go to the beach, go up in the attic, get in the boogie boards, coming down the stairs that lead to the garage cement floor. Coming down, slipped. I go flying down the stairs. Fortunately, I landed on my feet after road rash from all of, it looked like I was in on the back of a motorcycle and fell off. And my foot impacted on the cement. It created a wart, big one, like never had one in my entire life. Go to the podiatrist. He does some kind of treatment, doesn't go away. Go back again. Now it's getting uncomfortable. And he does it, other stuff doesn't go away. Go back the third time. Like, what are we going to do? It's like it's getting worse. And then he goes, you need to will it to go away. I'm like, what?
Yeah,
He
and you
goes,
immediately dismiss this guy. No, he's crazy.
will it to go away? Like, just think you want it to go away. He goes, yeah, just do it. It's going to work. I'm like, sure. And I'm thinking, I'm paying this guy a copay for this. This is what he's telling me. So I did it. It went away in 2 days.
2 days?
2 days.
That's amazing.
All I did was think, Wart, go away. I need you to go away. You're not serving me. I didn't ask for you. Please go away. And I would just think it just in my daily day, and it went away. So, but that was then. And I've just, it was a coincidence. It wasn't a coincidence now that I trace all this back. And also,
It was the trauma response.
yes, it was.
Yeah,
Yes, it was.
crazy.
Mm-hmm.
I'm reading a fascinating book right now that actually talks very much about what you're saying, about how you can cancel out programming and belief systems. And I can say this stuff. I'm not a health expert, and I know how it will be received. But there is a lot of a belief that sugar causes diabetes, or that too many eggs leads to high cholesterol, and high cholesterol causes heart disease. These causalities, they in many cases are belief systems, are programmings, and that there is a power of the mind that can be tapped into that just cancels out those programmings. It's
Hmm.
Dr. David Hawkins. The book title is Healing and Recovery. And I'm personally motivated to read this after my own history. I was
Mm.
down for 4.5 months, and my health issue was eczema. It was all over my face. It was all over my neck, all over my hands. My eyes wouldn't open. Um, I was
Wow.
miserable. I was
Connected to a
miserable with
trauma.
it. Yeah. And that goes back to trauma of my youth. So I got to practice what I preach and use those tools and find that, yeah, they're powerful,
Mm.
life-changing.
Yeah. I deal with minor skin cancer for 25 years plus.
Yeah.
I wonder if it is connected to trauma. And we're out
A
of time.
belief system. Yeah.
But when I see a spot popping up here and there, and I have to take care of them, and I'm used to it. But I'll even think like, do you need to go away? I'm not even kidding. I tried the wart thing on, and within a week or so, I see it start to fade a little bit. Now, does it need to be treated at some point? Yeah, I'll get to that, but
Right.
I feel it keeps it at bay. Otherwise, and I don't have to treat it with surgery. There's creams and it gets all, nasty and goes away. But I believe I'm keeping it at bay just by the power of the mind, and other issues. Well, last fall, I was going to drive myself to the hospital. I thought I had an ulcer. It was all connected to stress, but I believe it's connected. That's coming from something from the past as well. Because why do we deal with certain things the way we do? Because of our belief system.
Our conditionings. Yeah.
Exactly right.
Programmings, conditionings, belief systems, they weigh into our day-to-day and the way we handle things more than we realize. In fact, it could very well be that more of your personality is programming than actually you. Now that's
Well,
something to spin on for a little bit.
when you consider that, oh my gosh, we're over time. We're out of time. We're over time. When you consider that 95% is our subconscious, Steve is not really here. Emily's not really here. We're just on autopilot.
Right.
We're being, programmed from the past.
Right.
Our belief system is the puppet pulling the strings. Hi, how you doing?
Yeah, for sure. No,
I know I'm being silly.
We can talk about that too.
I know I'm being silly, but that's the truth.
It's the truth.
Yeah.
For sure.
Well, I like to say that the 5% of me that is conscious enjoys being with you.
Thank you. Likewise, I love these conversations.
Same.
And I like the rabbit holes. This is kind of fun.
You just make me jump in. I just have to learn more. That's,
Woo-hoo!
yeah. I think they call it like a suck hole in the group I'm in. That's what it is. It's a suck hole, but it's
right.
but
and
it's
there's always learning. That's what I love too. Because I do the same. I jump into my community and I continue to learn, to share. Hopefully there will never be an end of that.
Because the dots get connected and then you start figuring it out.
Right.
How do we find you? If somebody wants to learn more, whether it's on the energy healing level, whether it's on the organization level, what do we do?
Well, I'm on social media. I'm doing a little bit more. I'm back on camera talking. And the social media is Built to Be Visible, at Built to Be Visible, with Facebook and Instagram. And you can find me on the web, builttobevisible.com. And there's always, we can roll old school with a phone call. It's 480-221-8874.
I don't want to will you to go away like the wart, but I'm out of time. So
I get it. Thank you so much.
All right. We'll talk soon. Okay.
You bet.
Thanks, Emily. We'll be right back.
Are you looking for even more of the podcasts and hosts that you love? The Podcast Business News Network is proud to announce that you now have even more ways to listen live. Check out the MyTuner Radio, online radio box, and Simple Radio apps on iOS and Android, or find us online. Search for Business News Network on mytuner-radio.com, or search Podcast Business News Network on streama.com and onlineradiobox.com/US. Take your podcast on the go and don't miss a minute of the action.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers.
Day-to-day simple tasks can become pretty daunting.
I have to carry my chair up 2 flights of steps or have somebody do it for me.
What scares me the most is just the falling.
When I'm struggling with my house, I think, to have that one great barrier just knocked down, it's crucial.
Home for Our Troops is a wonderful nonprofit that builds a
mortgage-free, fully adaptive, handicap-accessible house. And there's no catch.
It'll be our very first home that we've ever owned.
This is a game changer.
This is where your life begins again.
We need you to join us in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
Because of you, everything's going to be okay.